I have this thing where it's like, I read something the other day that kind of aligned with what I was saying. It's like, if I'm on my feet and you're on your feet, that means no tip. But if I'm sitting down and you're on your feet, then I'll give you a tip.
I'm trying to think of an instance where you should tip if you're on your feet, but I can't think of one.
Not straight off hand. I mean, unless you're doing like a social hour thing where you're getting served. Oh, that could be a
Hotel. The bellhop, like if you're at a nice place.
Oh, see, that's a good one.
Standing up.
Yeah.
But I mean, you want to sit down.
Yeah. Totally. I hope I'm not sitting down while getting taken to my room.
If there was like a little seat in the back of the bellhop cart.
Yeah.
I would tip.
Or hey,
it's a rickshaw
hop
situation.
on your bag. Hop on your bag. I want to take you down.
That'd be funny.
It's like those kids, the kids backpacks these days, or the luggage that you can throw them on and like, hey, sit. I'm going to drag you through the airport.
I've seen that. Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's a little parenting laziness right there.
Okay, speaking of airports.
Okay.
I was doing some research on you. Make sure I'm recording. Yeah. And I looked at your Twitter, and you have a lot of tweets having issues with American Airlines. I feel like there's got to be a story to this.
Well, so for starters, that I don't post a lot on social media to start with. So most of my stuff is going to be when I'm frustrated about something. That's that's like everybody's like, oh my gosh, look at the reviews of this place. It's absolutely terrible.
But I know like customer service on Twitter
is significantly better.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, and not to sound too bougie here, but that was also before like, you had direct lines to Platinum Desk or Platinum Pro Desk or Executive Platinum. So like some of these times the Twitter team is actually probably the most active in being able to get things done. So that was like, and when I was blasting for other people, like I think there was a thing for about Mercy Me in there somewhere.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Daniel Martin, because he's from Mercy Me.
Oh, like on about American?
Yeah, because I think their guitars got delayed. It was like 25 cases or something.
Oh, jeez.
It was bad. But they made it right.
That's crazy.
But yeah, the Twitter team, and I very rarely do that, but I've had some really good doozies in the last 8 to 10 months.
Yeah, there was so I work with a company called Jordan Con. They're like a wedding band, like pretty luxury, high-dollar weddings. And they were doing a gig, I can't remember where, but they had a connection flight in France, I think, and then they had to get to somewhere in Europe, and their first flight was delayed, so they had to get on another flight, another airline, and they said they would get their bags over, and they did not.
No.
So nobody had any of their stuff. Some people didn't have their clothes, and these are like guys with saxophones and guitars and all this stuff.
Instruments that make them money and make them who they are.
Yeah, and they had to backline it all, but most of them never got it back. Gone forever.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot about Heathrow. Stuff going through London Heathrow.
Really?
Just, getting up in the air. My best one was I was flying Dallas to San Fran direct.
Okay.
And I checked in at the priority check-in right by TSA Pre for the Terminal A. Checked 3 bags. And it's literally, I think it's A16 or A18 was the check-in, and my flight was going out at A20, like right downstairs. Mm-hmm. So any of the 3 bags didn't make it. There's 2 more flights that evening. They didn't make those 2 other direct flights. So they booked them on the next morning. This is where it gets fun. The first one took the next flight out direct from Dallas to San Fran on American.
Yeah.
Bag number 2 went through Seattle on
Alaska?
Went on Alaska.
Yeah, I just did that flight. And
then the third one, it wanted to get some miles on its own, so it flew to Boston on JetBlue.
It would be JetBlue.
Yeah, and then JetBlue Boston back to San Fran. The funny part was on the Alaska one that it went to Seattle, got into baggage claim, and sat there. So I had to physically find a number, call the baggage claim and go like, dude, this is supposed to be in San Fran.
I go look for my bag.
I see the air tag, like, and so they put it there, and then of course then it arrived at Alaska's office in San Fran, and I just was like, I'm not waiting for these. I just went on my own, and so of course I'm in there with like my air tag trying to find it, going like, is it going to be an American or going to be an Alaskan? Of course it was an Alaskan, and they're like, we didn't know what to do with this thing, and I'm like, it has America tags on it. Like, why? Come on, people. So, anyways,
that's funny. I was like, you could trace this. You could do a couple lookups and figure out what's going on.
Let's see. What does your magical system tell you or not tell you, or you're going to tell me didn't tell you?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Ryan, I knew you when I was at Milestone, and I knew you as a RF guru, but it seems like the longer I've known you, and we don't talk a ton, but the more I learn that you have a bit more of a skill set than I know of. So
yeah, I definitely fall under. I like to diversify the things that I do because, particularly, to keep my mind running at 100 miles an hour, because I'm always thinking about something ridiculous in the middle of the night.
Do you have ADHD?
Well, of course I did.
Undiagnosed?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely was taking medicine when I was in high school.
Oh,
so,
really? Okay.
Probably totally transitioned into adult world. It just, we're in denial now. So I don't have that.
No.
Yeah. So, and at any given time, some division could take a crash.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that in the pandemic, which was the entire live portion, which was 80% of my yearly income, took a straight to zero.
Yeah.
Stayed in black because, of course, I financially at least understand, hey, put some money back. Don't spend every dollar that you get. So did a little install work, so integration, whether it be houses of worship or lately been doing a bunch of like entertainment stadium LED style stuff. So like all the control room integration. And of course, now picking up like some studio designs for television, broadcast studios, doing RF designs for those. And it's just, I guess a lover of all thing knowledge.
Yeah.
Like, hey, nobody knows about that. I'm going to put my, put my finger in that little crack there and let's find out what's going on.
Yeah. You're a learner.
Yes.
Whatever that test is. Whatever it is. Whatever bullshit test it is.
What was that age-old Dearborn one? It's like, oh, I got some bad news. Your son's going to be an engineer.
Yeah.
So,
he'll take care of you though.
Totally.
Hopefully, if he likes you.
Yeah.
If he likes you.
So that's going back to definitely I still do corporate shows, live events. That's my heavy lifting that I do across most of the entire year. Still have plenty of church and house of worship stuff. And integration stuff. So, it's like if I'm not one, I'm doing the other just to kind of to make sure I don't.
You run sound too, though.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I didn't think you were an audio guy until later on.
Yeah, it's less and less because, as, the fruits of labor and my knowledge has gained in certain aspects. So, of course, I still understand most desk. I still can mix all that stuff. But, am I in the last 10 percentile? No, but that doesn't mean with
Do you like it?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
But we joke this all the time. Like front of house is front of house, especially in the corporate world. Like joking aside, everybody gets accused of like, don't call me the DJ. But 9 times out of 10, that's what a corporate A1 is like, oh, hey, let's choose these play-ons or this walk-up music. And it's like, I want something poppy, but non-driving. I'm like, and I'm out.
That's when I go to ChatGPT. An executive is asking for at this company is asking for this specific thing. It actually works pretty good.
Yeah. And that's something that is, of course, taken off in the last 6 or 8 months, and it's like I haven't used it in that manner.
Yeah.
So it's like that whole thing is new to everybody's workflow. Is like, I could go run and ask ChatGPT.
Well, because I actually had a DJ gig for Tarleton University. I'm probably saying it wrong. And they asked me for a very specific style, and I was like, I don't know a ton of songs like that. So I just typed a whole prompt in, and it was like, I was like, give me 500 songs in this vein, and I just sussed it out, went through and listened. I was like, oh, cool.
I just wish that the AI, if you could ask it that way on like your big time, like your Apple Music, your Spotify, your titles, all that. I wish they had as good as AI, because it's like, hey, I'm going to choose Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and one other, and the next thing you know, you have like a Britney Spears tune. And I'm like, how does this have any relation when both of the ones that you just suggested were both rock?
Yeah, I mean, Spotify, if you add in the playlist, you can add a couple songs, and it will do it, but it'll also go to your taste. And sometimes that's not what I want, because my taste is so wide.
Well,
like I'll be doing country and then add like a Billie Eilish song. And like, no,
yeah,
that's not the kind of playlist I'm trying to make.
Or you have those days where it's like, I'm just going to go listen to everybody knows it's probably the dumbest song selections ever. Hey, let's go listen to some Britney Spears tune, or, Katy Perry
just
or something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like, oh, cool. That one star comment now destroyed my perfect 5.0.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know Apple is integrating ChatGPT or something like that. So that'll probably make its way to Apple Music. But
totally.
The funny thing about, and I've heard people talk about Spotify and Apple Music, is like Spotify is like the most Apple streaming service, and Apple Music is the most like Android streaming service. It's like somehow it got flipped around.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so where did you get your start, and what was your like first thing profession wise you really dove into, learned, made some money? Was it audio?
It definitely was an audio.
Was it Costco?
Yeah. Well, go to Costco to get rid of your money, which, sidecar, I actually did work at a Costco for a couple of years.
Oh, I knew it.
Yeah. Which they call it Majors, which is their electronics division. And of course,
Oh, like they had a separate thing called Majors?
Yeah, so like Best Buy has the TV section and the computer section.
Oh, I see.
Costco considers their electronic or TV section, they called it Majors. I don't know if they call that now. But, and this is when South Lake just first opened, so there wasn't a bunch of them in DFW, so they would push Intel, and so we'd go get some kind of training by Intel or something of that nature. So
because you're like standing by the desk and like explaining and helping.
Yeah, kind of it's like, oh, hey, so what's the difference between, like what we should love to have in modern day technology or sales is you actually guided a customer in making a choice without, telling some kind of fib like, this one's way faster. I don't know why. But and that was like, it was all in the first when the I series were starting to come out. So, Intel was telling about all that kind of stuff.
That was back in the day. It might have been before this, but when you'd go to like places like Dillard's or somewhere, you show up to like the suit section and you have a guy now and he's like, he knows his way around. He knows your price point. He knows exactly what you look good in. And my dad did that when he was a kid.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. And he was rolling in the dough with the Dillards.
Oh, totally.
Dillard stuff.
I think my jam was like J.C. Penney's.
Yeah.
My real dad would always make fun of me because like, you got to wear these name brands, and I'm like, there's some J.C. Penney off brand. Like, why do we got to say that they're name brand?
Yeah.
So where I got started. Okay, so my family, we have lots of a bunch of them, good with woodworking and painting and, just general stuff of that nature. So, already had that kind of in my DNA. And when we moved to Keller in 96 and went to middle school at that time, was lucky enough to have a woodworking shop. And so was always, of course, building things at home, trying not to destroy everything in my parents' house that they were giving me. But, in middle school, I got into this car audio thing, back when there was Radio Shack and you could go buy 5 1/4s and crossovers and all these little things and just play and blow things up.
Yeah.
Oops, you're out $4.
Yeah.
But when woodworking came along, it was like discovering how to round edges and how, like kind of liquid nails and stuff like that to attach things together. So I quickly started gaining knowledge about like, and then when the math comes in play, like I started figuring out how to build sub cabinets.
Oh, really?
So here I am, a middle school student building sub cabinets for high school students.
What year was that?
95,
95.
94, 95.
It's a pretty good time to have a sub in your car.
Oh yeah.
So when I actually bought a sub for my car, it was probably like 2000. It would have been like 2009, 2010. And that was when Skrillex was big.
Oh yeah.
So that was the time to really have a sub in your car.
Mm-hmm.
Had a little dial and it turned all the way up all the time.
Totally. Because I think Rockford Fosgate was one of the first one that came out with the whole like, hey, we got this bass control knob that you can plug into your amplifier and
Yeah.
turn it down when you're getting into your which is one of those key things. Like you always tell somebody, like, hey, if you put a sub in your car, definitely turn it down when you get close to home, because then people know where you live and they're going to come jack your crap.
Probably.
But I got into the whole building sub cabinets thing because it was a weird thing of, hey, I discovered, and one of those things that we'll probably talk further in this entire conversation is, I started finding the little things that people didn't understand, which was the cubic feet that a sub required. Mm-hmm. And that was the magic thing in all the car audio, was every single driver required a minimum amount of space in order for it to be maximum performance.
Right.
So some of these people were like, oh, I'm just going to build a 12 by 12 and I don't know why it doesn't sound great.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, that takes 1.2 cubic feet. You're like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Here, pay me $100 and I'll take care of you.
I had a guy when I bought my sub, I was like, hey, I want to get this in the side, kind of in smaller. He's like, no, you don't. He was like, I have a box built for this speaker, and you should buy this box. I was like, why? He says, it's gonna be cleaner, it's gonna be tight,
it's gonna sound amazing.
I still have it, funny enough.
Yeah.
And I still have there's a diamond sub and a diamond amp.
So if that was Diamond, I bet you. So that was the dude off of Roof Snow.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he loved the diamond.
Yeah, he was always into Diamond.
Yeah.
Which a guy that's in one of the companies I do integration stuff for, he actually worked at Car Sounds too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They had that big old monster truck.
Oh, yeah, for the longest time. I don't remember the owner's name, but so, then after middle school, did the whole, like, this is when you could make pens on lathes and stuff, and then got into high school, and, high school didn't have woodworking, but, of course, I still would do sub-cabinet building, whether it was in my own car or something of that nature, or building something for my room. And then I want to say sophomore year, starting getting more involved in church. Mm-hmm. My girlfriend at the time, now my wife, we were going to a church called the Met, and I got involved in the kids ministry, and it was one of those things that, like, I just saw a need somewhere. I was like, man, this really interests me.
Yeah.
Like, why are the speakers sitting over in the corner? And, so then I just slowly started, like, hey, what are the dumb things I can do to make this better?
Was that when the Met was on Keller Parkway?
Yes.
In that? Okay. Yeah, because Milestone was in there after them.
Yeah, so when I first got involved at Met, they were actually still doing a setup takedown at South Lake Carroll.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I was volunteering for the kids ministry, and then when we moved into that Keller Parkway location, which was actually the grocery store right before that.
Yeah.
I was still volunteering in the kids ministry, and then eventually, we'll just call it level up. So I moved up into the upper ages of the kids, which that is small little stadium-style seating thing. It was probably 3 or 4 levels where you could, house more kids and scream and all that stuff, and had Yamaha speakers. Hey, here I'm going to hang them on chain, and how do we run cables down wall? And then, I want to see, 98, 99, somewhere in there. Along came a what would future be one of my 3 core mentors in my life. His name was Brandon Shanoff. He's the owner, founder of Epic Resource Group. He didn't have Epic at the time, but he came in, was doing more mixing stuff, and so I slowly started transitioning out of the kids and getting into more under his wing, learning, mixing and understanding of that stuff. And then when that church did a whole big install and basically rotated their room, did a bunch of stuff. I was there every day. I was learning about the integration company I was there. Was like question about why would you use the patch base? How do you wire this? And it just grew from there.
So wait, he installed that room? Those Rinkus Hines?
Yes, the original.
Interesting. Because so it was long ways.
Yeah.
And then they changed it sideways. Okay.
Yeah. So in the method that you probably, and I don't know, I never stepped in there when Milestone took it over. But in the original, in the first ever rendition of it, because they were using PAS speakers for the longest time, and then they switched over to Rinkus Hines, and that's when they really went long ways in the building, and it was always a big hindrance because the back of it had a huge drop down that was going to be an obscene amount of money to make it the same ceiling height.
Right.
And then later on, to improve sight lines and get more people in the room, they flipped it 180 degrees.
Okay.
No, flipped it 90. Sorry, flipped it 90.
So I was going to say, when I was a kid, I went there, and I remember it being a different way. And then when I actually started going there and eventually working there, I was like, this is different than I remember. But I could just be misremembering my childhood.
Yeah, the stage went from being on the north side to being on the east side.
Okay.
Because they later took over, and I can't remember when they went to the east side if they also took over the building to the east of them, which was an old Eckerd's drugstore thing, and they made that into their youth building.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name. It was like 18. No, I'm not even going to attempt it.
Yeah.
But so, ran into Brandon, started getting stuff under him, then started he had a band at the time. I was kind of hanging out with him, learning some mixing, some other stuff. And that's when I was working, had a variety of other jobs while also doing this, which was working at Costco, or also got down and dirty and worked for Quick Car and Keller, and also worked at Lowe's. So, all the variety of just picking up, hey, let's just do things that pay.
Whatever's in front of you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Which fast forwarded, I ended up started working more and more and more at the church. And then for about a stint of about 3 years, I worked for a nightclub up in Denton called Rain Entertainment.
Okay.
Which before that was Groovy Mule.
Okay. Is it still there?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was just south of 370, south of 35.
Okay.
But that's where I learned tearing down stages quickly.
Yeah.
Because we had 15-minute set changes.
Uh-huh.
Was it the greatest environment for a church person? Absolutely not. Some of the darkest, stupidest things I've ever done in my life was during that job. But knowledge-wise, of course, you pick up, hey, how do we load in and load out a band quick? How do we do things for stuff that reeks of beer? How do we make stuff like that work? Which then leads me to, at that joint venture in my life, I meet yet another mentor of my that later becomes one of my core mentors, Matt Bishop, who was coming through with a band called Flicker Stick at the time.
Flicker Stick.
Yeah.
What a name.
Yeah. He was mixing front of house for Flicker Stick, and he had been on tour with them for a while, but they were just doing some one-offs at that point. So he was working at Fellowship Church.
Okay.
And so he's like, hey, man, you ever thought about we'd struck up friendship, and then he meets Brandon, and the two of them hook up because Brandon's band actually opened the night that Flicker Stick was there. Brandon's band opened up for Flicker Stick that night. So the two of them met, really hit it off. I find myself running monitors for a student at Fellowship Church.
What console was that?
It was the M3000.
M3000.
Yamaha.
Oh, like the Heritage?
No, Yamaha.
Wait. Have I worked on that before?
It was the one that you could think about touching a knob and it would be too much. If you think about touching it again, it would be not enough.
Huh.
It was almost like it suffered the whole Mackie thing where you get the dust.
What color was it?
It was the standard kind of the dark
Yamaha
gray.
color? So it wasn't like the brown and silver Yamaha, old Yamaha?
No.
Okay.
No, this was kind of it was made for monitors because I don't remember how many auxes it would do, but it had several monos and then had two stereos at the bottom.
Okay. Interesting.
but yeah, started doing that, then started doing front of house, and then became Matt's basically second. So he could do more managerial stuff during the week, and then I would prep stuff for, and then at some point kept leveling up at fellowship, became did more and more front of house. They decided to do the whole satellite campuses thing when that was just starting.
Yeah.
You had Life Church, and you had nobody that was really, really doing it as a simulcast.
Yeah. Technology was starting to
Oh boy.
to get there.
Yeah, when you had High Vision and there was like only 1 or 2 players that could do actual live video over the internet. And and it's still, what's interesting is it's still the same arguments. Frame rate, delay, all that nonsense in today's modern
Sound
world.
quality.
Well, I mean, and it was one of those, the one thing that I did love about that they were so adamant about was, Ed being 6 foot, I think he was 6'3" or 6'4". They wanted him to be 6'3" or 6'4" at every single campus.
Oh, like on the screen.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they would do a lockdown. So the center screen, they would do an iMag.
Yeah.
And then they would do a lockdown in the middle, and the
So
lockdown.
they would simulcast 2 different
Yeah.
videos.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Which they tried the whole over internet thing, and I don't think it really got to what they were wanting. So I was the, basically project or the production manager, front of house guy for Uptown at the time, meeting at North Dallas High School. And so we'd have a video rack. We'd go there at 3:30 in the morning
Gosh.
on a Sunday. I'd get there about 3:45, 3:50.
Yeah.
I'd get in the 26-foot box van. We'd go pull the video rack out of the building because they would record it. They were using it's like Betacam HD at the time.
Okay.
So they record 2 of them, an iMag and a lockdown, and they didn't want the video to acclimate to weather, so the moisture would get on the heads and stuff. So the rack would be waiting for us in the building. So we'd open the door, push it on the truck, we'd drive out to Uptown, and we'd unload it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So y'all didn't do it over internet at the time. Y'all ended up just doing drives.
Tapes.
Tapes, yeah.
Yeah. Which later became drives.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is all before, you had
Was there were you able to sync them easily? Like, was there a time code situation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
And mainly the sync was because, of course, at Uptown, we were rolling not brand new gear. So at Uptown, we were, some secondhand stuff like what was spares or something of that nature. So the side screen projectors were like SDI to component.
Uh-huh.
And then the center screen was absolutely like SDI to all the way in or something. So
Yeah.
you had a frame or 2 delay between the 2 of them because of the 2 different format conversions.
But
who's
who's gonna know?
Yeah. But so that would, it'd take us a minute or 2. All right, play it. Yep, it's 1 frame off. And then roll it back, set
Yeah.
the time marker, play it again. Boom, we're dead on. Send it.
Nobody touch anything.
Yeah. The things for us at that one was like because the actual theater was on 1 floor up.
Okay.
And so it was like, oh, please, Lord, let the elevator work.
Yeah.
Because it did not on Easter.
Uh-uh.
Yeah, so needless to say, we were backing up the box truck to the front of the school, and we had an entire crew of people. This video rack was at the time probably 6 foot tall,
Yeah.
carrying this 700-pound rack up
At least, yeah.
all these flights of stairs.
Oh man.
It was terrible.
On its back, just like
Oh yeah, all of that. And then carrying the band gear, and because we were carrying drums and keyboards and PA and monitor console, front of house console, the side screen projectors, all that hoopla. It was fun.
At least you weren't carrying LED wall.
Oh
That would have just been another
yeah.
another headache.
Well, and so I think I was at Uptown for about 6-8 months, and then Alliance came along, and that was at that point there was no secondhand gear left, so that one really got some of the cream of the crop. And luckily we were in their theater, so we had Meyer line arrays that were hidden behind THX screens.
Okay.
So, you rolled in with the little Sumner Genie Tower. We had this little custom thing make, and
They didn't want to see the arrays.
well, it was easy.
Okay.
Because we were already doing crank ups for speakers. Why not integrate the side screens into a one Fell Swoop's selection here. So it was Meyer, at the time, M1Ds, two M1D subs and a bunch of M1Ds under it. Mm-hmm. Came in two different cases. So you could have the entire PA up in about 4 or 5 minutes, one person.
Really?
It was all color-coded. I got it down to a color code.
That's crazy.
So, red right, blue left, you'd roll in and you just plug it in together. It was purely volunteer-based. She had the monitor guy, myself, and the video lead were really the only paid people there. So moving on into at a point where, there was some disagreement and some stuff about at Alliance. I had a campus pastor that I felt was very different, opinionated than most of the rest of the church. And it was one of those things, it was kind of time for me to move on anyways. So I left the church market, and then Matt had left a little bit before that. Sorry, I failed to mention my third mentor. His name was Matt Wheeler. Okay. He was the senior audio director for Fellowship. He had a bunch of. This is the first time that I got the sprinkling of ridiculous RF. We were having James Stoffo, the founder of PWS, come in, and they would come in and do checkups once or twice a year.
Okay.
This is before you had cool, hey, I can pick any frequency I want. This was Sennheiser 5000 series where you had 16 choices.
Gosh.
And so, he had a tabletop analyzer there where I could check frequencies and make sure everything was clean, all that. So, got my first taste of this is a mystery, and I kind of like it.
Yeah.
And he was using this weird DOS prompt style frequency coordinator. You would type in the frequencies and no. And you'd have to go 510-200, enter. No, 510-2.
Just tell me which ones work.
Yeah. Which, PWS had a software that was not public at that time. Mm-hmm. So I leave the church market in 2006, and Matt had gone to work for a company called Alfred Media. And so when I left there and I told Matt, I was like, man, I don't know what's next in store for me, but, if you know anything, just keep an eye out, whatever. And he's like, hey, man, you want to do some corporate work? And I'm like, I don't know what that entails, but I'm always up for something.
A little scared, but sure.
And he's like, well, great. I'll have so-and-so reach out to you. There's a show in Washington. You'll be doing basically the same thing, putting up systems. Okay. So a week and a half later, I'm on an airplane and headed to Washington, D.C. to do something for Harvard Business School. And that was kind of the start of my corporate thing.
Cool.
Of course, in all of this, I still kept the whole hey, what if I did an integration over here? Or what if I, that was always my nature, just trying to keep the magic up around about just to kind of, keep my mind always turning.
Natural born freelancer.
Yeah, or if you pay, I play.
Yeah, for sure.
So, so most of that was, that's kind of how I transitioned into all the different things that I've, in my entire life. And I really have, I can say lots of thanks, both spiritually, both for my business and everything in my life to Brandon, Matt, and Matt, two Matts. Matt Wheeler for, pushing the things that, it's dude, only a dog can hear that, man. But, you got to push for that excellence.
Yeah.
And, Matt for just the general, always hey, let's try this and let's strive for this. And, always learn to do something new. But it was always good to be surrounded by knowledge monsters that would pass that to you, to have that same style of knowledge. Dude, never get complacent.
Yeah.
Always learn to improve yourself.
For sure.
Whether it be spiritually or anything in your life. And that's what all three of those were to me, was everything in a package.
Yeah.
These are the things that you need to do to, So, Bishop was more of could be it sometimes as a parent in my life when, I make a dumb decision and, he'd give the we'd be driving in his car, and he's like, "Hey, man, you need to get your shit together."
You need somebody like that in your life.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. You need to stop doing dumb stuff.
Yeah.
So, all right. So long drawn out, way too much to tell a story about 25 years of my life.
No, that's great. That's why you're here.
Yeah. So
What are you talking about? What is your favorite thing to do now that you've done all these things?
lately, or just in general?
Like if tomorrow you got your dream, like, gig in your realm, you're like, yes. You know, what would that be?
It's so hard because I love, out of the three things that I say that I do a lot these days, RF, intercom, and has been more and more in the last 3 to 5 years, IT work. Because everything has become more and more IT.
What aspect of IT?
Both IP addressing and then just in general of like, because as things more and more become Dante,
Yeah.
or some kind of audio over IP thing, it's understanding how to properly structure some kind of network, like, you know, and most of it's just finding the dumb prizes that are hidden behind doors about don't do something stupid.
Yeah.
I get calls where it's like, oh, hey, so we were afraid that the fiber may break between 2 points, so we put 2 things of fiber between them, and then we decided to unplug one of them, and the entire network crashed for a couple seconds. Like, yeah, I suggest you don't do that next time. And here's the following reason why, and then I try to not overbear them with technical knowledge, but like just explain to them why, what happened.
Yeah.
And there's weird things that, oh, why can't I just use some cheap Unify switch? Or why would I need one, Unify now? That this is
People love Unify.
oh gosh, which I don't hate them.
Just not for audio over IP
Well,
stuff.
and now what has happened to them is that they came in and dove head first into the AV market.
Oh, really?
Because they now support AV, kind of. They kind of tried to do the same thing that Netgear did and do these weird like profiles for Dante and stuff of that nature.
I didn't even know Netgear did that.
Oh yeah, they're the big player in the market now.
Because my only interface with Dante, it's only been one system, really. But it actually being hands-on throughout the process was like a Cisco 300 or whatever it is.
Yeah, and Cisco 300s were I would feel like where most people cut their teeth.
Yeah.
They were cheap. They were a level 3 or a layer 3. Sorry, not level 3. Layer 3 had some good traffic negotiation, good backbone, good everything that could facilitate Dante. And there was really good guides from Yamaha out.
Yeah.
So that's where most people cut their teeth.
You could just follow the guide. Yep.
That was also one of those like, oh, commissioning one switch takes 22 minutes. Oh boy.
Yeah.
And then, Luminix comes along. They're the first player in the market that has predefined VLANs. They call them groups. And it was just a switch that they hit the market that was it just works. It's the whole Apple mentality. Just plug it in. It works.
Plug it in. Don't touch anything.
And there was zero programming. Like, you just made sure that... and they also had something cool, which all their ports would turn colors.
Woo.
So, you could do on their Luminous GigaCore 26Is, you could do all the ports assigned, like 1 through 10 could be... Red would be Group 2 or VLAN 2.
Yeah.
And you could know straight up what all these VLANs were that were on your switches. And Dante, great, it works. AS67, cool, check a box, it works. AVB, same deal, check a box, it works. Not like this, hey, I got to get under the hood and know 22 lines of code or something. And then we fast forward to like Netgear. Netgear put in the layer 3 things like DHCP and, inter VLAN routing and all that little stuff that like was missing in Luminex for a substantially less price point.
Yeah.
And now you have the new, and this is also when Cisco was kind of getting rid of some of their switches.
But is that Netgear switch good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Love it.
Cool.
Again,
this is a side I don't know enough about that I probably should.
They're called M4250s. There's an actual, it's called AV line.
Okay.
So it was specifically made for our industry. You still have to understand networking a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you can't plug two things in the same VLAN unless they're the two different ports. There's loopback, there's these weird kind of things. But, it's just the IT. I gravitated towards the IT thing because another absolute mystery to 99% of the world.
Yeah.
And during the pandemic, I went through and I was like, what can I go learn that will further and put me into a line that puts me above everybody else or puts me ahead of the crowd for me to, when you look at the crowd, you see, oh man, I want him.
Well, honestly, I've been in situations where I wish I knew a lot more because, especially Dante, I've had churches just get away from Dante. They sell Yamaha, buy another console because they don't want to be on Dante. And part of the back of my brain's like, man, I feel like there's a solution, a reason, a fix. But, I mean, you have more experience in this. Is there a reason to not trust Dante? Or is it just user error?
I mean, I trust Dante. But then again, most of the environments, I can control everything about it.
Right. So, but it's not just like, oh, everything's done right, but Dante doesn't work. No, it's more like Dante doesn't work because something's not right.
And typically you hear this because you're a church IT guy or you are backboning off of a huge system that is still out of your hands.
Yeah.
And those are the times that I hear the worst horror stories is, my church IT guy has zero understanding, or you get into a big enterprise level and they didn't buy the license for these switches that support the clocking that Dante does or AS67 does.
Oh.
And so you butt heads with these guys that understand giant networks, but they don't understand the weird little clocking packets that Dante needs.
Yeah.
And they want to lock down these entire networks. And where Dante is a multicast DNS, it's multicast to discover things and all these kind of things. So you have all those weird things that, these are the things that you ask yourself when you are building a system. And most of the time I tell them, if you have your entire Dante network to yourself, you should have no problems. If you can control the switches that you buy, how they're deployed, you're probably going to have absolutely no issues.
Yeah.
But to keep your heads up if somebody else is going to drive that.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess moral of the story is learn more about Dante.
Yeah.
Instead of switching to Ellen and Heath. Calling out a specific church.
Totally. I mean, we can call it many churches about switching from some console format to some, Allen and Heath because it's, I don't know. I'm just not a lover of the D-Live.
Oh, we agree. We agree.
I know
I've heard good mixes on D-Live. It's not that they sound bad, and it's not like consoles sound a certain way, but I hate the workflow. I hate the metering. I hate some of the limitations. Some things I can do on an X32 that I can't do on the D-Live. It's insane to me. That are starting to get fixed now, I think. But
yeah, well, and I have not touched it. And that physical, there's a church here in town that has a monitor desk, and most of it is just pushing faders because most of the core band's the same, so it's just a pushing faders thing. But for me, it's the hardest thing to get most of the crowd to understand what I'm discussing when it comes to why I don't like it, because they look at me with a blank stare because they don't have some of the sonic understanding of how I'm trying to explain it. So the best way I was like, the more inputs that you put through that desk, it's like the overall depth of field or basically the overall vision that it can cover greatly narrows.
Okay.
And I tried to explain it as if you go listen to these records that like when you're hearing these super nice open recorded records that were going after these awesome plates or awesome reverbs that have these really long sustains.
Yeah.
If you D-Live got so popular because it was great at impulse. It was great at reacting, but it has no sustain to it. And so like if you go and listen to it like, and sometimes like if you can get just the snare and you can hit it and you listen to it in the headphones just right, it's pow, and then just falls off rather than a nice long sustain.
Just dry input.
Yeah,
going
taking a
in.
snare and like trying to do a reverb, it's almost like
You're talking about a reverb?
Yeah.
The reverb sound you're talking about? Or the actual...
I'm using the reverb as it's like a reverb trail. It's almost like that entire last
You're talking about
bit
just
of,
on a dry snare.
Yeah, a dry snare or anything that you're going to use. I'm just going to focus on effects.
Is it because of how it's taking the visual information
think
of
the
audio?
the technical side of it, I'm going to say, is probably the FGPA falls short at some point about the whole resolution versus bit rate thing.
Okay.
And so I think it just at some point it goes, hey, I'm out of here for now.
Huh.
But that's why I try to explain is it lacks the full vision of taking an entire mix down to the very last bit. So it's almost like it just decides at the last second to go, okay, I'm moving on.
Yeah. But it's not like a gate.
No. It's like it just stops. And again, this is really hard to describe.
Yeah, I'm trying to follow you.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Without really going hand in hand on something.
You know who needs to do this? Dave Rat.
Yes.
Dave Rat needs to do a deep dive on this.
Yes. A D live. We're toasting at 100 hertz.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was probably my favorite episode. Taking an amplifier to drive a toaster.
Yeah.
We're gonna do 320 toast. No. So going back to it, I guess my greatest is it lacks the bit depth and resolution to fully process a reverb. Now, a side chain to this is one of the churches.
Is this why I hate their reverbs? Or is this a completely different conversation? I think it's a completely different conversation.
That's probably also
I hate the
reverb.
reverbs.
So,
man. Even the new ones.
Yeah. The church I was mixing out for about 10 years. Slowly brought it up. We had an Allen and Heath analog console, then went to a profile, and then went to a mix engine. We went to a profile and then landed on an S6L.
Okay.
And that whole time, we kept the same PA, ended up, we had old servo drive subs, if you know what those are. They were a co-designed NASA thing, so it was like
NASA, like Houston, whatever.
Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah.
No, the best way is the same like M-Force, the modern age like PowerSoft M-Force.
Okay.
So it was driven by a servo. So the actual subdriver was driven by a belt-driven servo.
What?
They were
crazy.
Incredibly loud.
I bet.
Ridiculously loud, but they were slow.
Slow and probably hot?
They were so buried in the stage I could never like go touch them. I do know that they lasted for an obscene amount of time when other people told me, dude, you need to find some backup belts because they're going to throw a belt.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be out.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Which we did. We ended up having a couple of them blow. And when I say blow, the actual cone, because it was the whole like weird servo thing. So the actual cone had degraded because they were
old,
installed in 2003 or something.
Yeah.
2006.
Used twice a week.
True.
They're like 6 hours.
7
1 hours a week.
and a couple things. But we were, back to like replace the subs and like, but we never replaced the tops. They have now, but we went from I don't remember what the system. Oh, Symmetrics.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, they're still on the market, but they were one of. So Symmetrics, I don't even remember the resolution or anything of that nature because it really didn't mean anything to anybody at that time.
Were they better?
They were one of the small players in a, where you could get more than like a 2 in 6 out.
Okay.
And you could do similar to, Medium Matrix really drove the large frame for a long time there. And then Audia came into the market. You had BSS and you had Symmetrics. And now you have QSYS. But at the time it was Symmetrics. So we replaced that with AudiaFlex so we could get everything in one box. So we could do 2 input. I think we were doing like 21 outs or something.
Okay.
Of course, the sonic quality completely improved there because it was modern age technology. It was 48K, and I think at the time it was 24-bit.
Okay.
So we get the SXL, and it was always like the mix translated very well to a pair of headphones. Wheeler tuned that PA, and it sounded phenomenal for what it was.
Yeah.
And the mixes translated really well to headphones, except for reverbs. It was always, the reverbs were always hotter in the headphones than they were in the house. And later, after we got the SXL, we were replacing the subs, is when we finally went to a same 96K 32-bit through and through. So we had 32-bit pre's, we had the 96K and the SXL, but we had kind of the, we were driving AES to the thing. So we went to Linnea had this processor that was 96K 32-bit. And that first time that we fired it up with 96K 32-bit all the way through and through was the first time I was like, oh my gosh, that reverb is way too loud.
Really? And
so it went 1 for 1. And that's when I was kind of like, okay. So the whole bit depth thing really, really means something of course it does in a reverb.
Well, usually
world.
when people talk about it, it's like you don't hear it. But usually what you're hearing for is like the transient response.
Yeah.
Which is not that different.
No.
But it's really in the subtleties that's going after what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, without getting in the whole geeky thing, you're talking about 48 versus 96, I related into if you're scanning from left to right. Bit depth resolution would be the amount of slices you're taking while you're looking from left to right. Mm-hmm. A bit depth would be the amount of information that you're pulling in for every time that you're taking a sample. And so, of course, a bit depth would be way more audible in today's market because of it's more information.
I thought it was, this may be something entirely different, but when I do board mixes, sometimes my reverbs are really loud.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just the fact that I'm in a room that maybe is a little more...
You're not wrong.
Reverberant, and I'm pushing the verbs more to hear it.
Yeah.
That's probably it. Not any sort of like anything going on between the console out to the speakers.
Yeah, again, the room that I was in was probably not the best, but let's just use delay. Because delay on that aspect, like if you're using long or short, those are very audible.
Yeah. No
matter where you're using them. Mm-hmm. And if we just take the reverb out, because, most rooms are reverberant. So, like you said, if we take that out of the mix of describing all that stuff, delay being one of them, it was you can always tell when you have too much delay versus in the house versus headphones. Of course, like there's going to be a slight variation, but I really felt they were super close to each other once we got everything.
Processor.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And then we can get into the whole resolution thing when it comes into RF too. So, we can.
Well, also, was the PA retuned then as well?
Well, of course.
The same. Okay. I wonder how different it was.
But before we actually tuned it, I pulled it up and listened to it.
Okay.
Because, the Linnea also supported FIR filters and stuff like that. So, of course, that's also going to be something that, you're sonically going to hear a massive difference because of you no longer, when you're EQing, you're not destroying phase anymore.
Yeah.
But, so back to my conversation or your question about if I had to choose one. I don't know. I just enjoy intercom.
Like if it was like, intercom?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So didn't you do intercom for one of the Super Bowls?
Yeah, 2020. Yeah, right before the pandemic.
Was it Miami?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tell me about that. How was that crew? How was that experience? Was it different than normal, or was it
I was the crew.
easier? Okay.
The Super Bowl has many aspects to it. So I was on the end game production.
Okay.
So in the world, the English or the non-technical term on that is everybody in the stadium.
Okay.
Working for a company that has done it since I think 30-something years, maybe a little less than that. My portion of it was literally control room and everything like wireless cameras and the talent that was, doing kiss cam or whatever stuff that you would normally have inside of these stadiums. And I'm still completely in contact with all the, the guys that support the gear and phenomenal dudes, but it has since exploded in the needs and all that stuff since I've did it.
Even since 2020?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Why?
Yeah. Just because of good products and everybody wants a intercom now.
Huh. I wouldn't think anything has much changed since then.
Yeah, right.
No.
That's the same thing that I kind of said. I feel pre-pandemic, it was always my joke of for every 6 hardwired intercom stations, you would have 1 wireless. Now it's completely opposite.
Really? Everybody wants wireless.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then people discern, it's like, oh, I don't really want to work, so I'm just going to throw you a wireless belt pack. It'll be great. It's like the spot ops are 1,000 feet up in the air, and just take wireless.
Yeah. Is coordinating that similar to like coordinating mics?
No. It's more of a weird knowledge game because you can't coordinate the 1.9 band. It's all because it's decked. It's similar to like like you see your Coach Com and Pliant and
when you say 1.9 band,
yeah,
is that 1.9 thousand?
Yeah, like
900,000.
Yeah,
so 1,900,000.
No.
What is it?
It's 1,920.
So it's
megahertz.
Way low.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's higher than what your RF microphones would be. So
so my RF mics are between like 450 and 550.
470 and 608.
Yeah.
If you have Axion, it's you get that little chunk of 416 to 616, which is called the guard band. And then there's a sliver that a lot of people don't know that you can't use because there's a lot of these vendors that the FCC basically states that if it can access outside of this duplex gap, which is in cell phone technology, the transmitter from tower to the phone is separate from phone to tower, and in that 600 megahertz chunk, they separated it and they called it the duplex gap.
Okay.
So there is let's call it 16 it's like 12 megahertz, I believe, chunk there. And so unlicensed users are allowed X, and there's an additional 4 that licensed users that have like Part 74s are allowed to use. So you have that access, and those are all in the 600s. And then way up there, in between, there's this weird null zone of, I'd have to go look it up because it's weird how much stuff is in between 1.9 gigahertz all the way up to, when we get it up into Wi-Fi, which is 2.4 and 5 and 6.
Okay.
There's so much stuff from NASA and military and astronomy and all these weird things that you're like, holy Toledos, there's all that crap up there.
Yeah.
But going back to the technology, it's all based on how the manufacturer has, because it's all digital, so it's codecs and algorithms. And so, that's why, like, if you go look at Clearcom's original Free Speak, it can only do 5 belt packs per antenna and ate up so many slots in the entire thing. And then Bolero rolls in and you can do double that. So you can do 10 belt packs per, because their codec was written for significantly better bandwidth and tighter and all this hoopla. And so you kind of use it like Wi-Fi.
So it doesn't really have a set frequency.
The set frequency is only 1920 to 1930.
So it's just,
and that's what you're licensed for in the
Can I think of it like
States.
DHCP, or is that not thinking about it correctly?
No, think of it more like Wi-Fi, except for you can't choose the actual channel. Like, let's use 2.4 gigahertz. You have channels 1 through 11, in Wi-Fi, you can choose it. But in DEC technology, it kind of scans itself and then says, hey, I can put up with a certain amount of noise, so I'll choose this one. Okay. And so that's how that whole technology works.
Okay.
So I get a lot of calls about, like, hey, can we put Pliant, CoachComm, which is for, let's see, I think Division I is now using Bolero. So, like your Georgia, those big players are using Bolero more and more now. But like Division II and under, those guys are still using like CoachComm, which was a Pliant product. Well, that's a weird story. I mean, it was a co-branded Clearcom thing, and now Pliant's kind of their own, but that's who runs CrewComm, or CoachComm, sorry. But that's also, can be 900 or 1.9. Mm-hmm. So that's another one of those things that it just kind of does what it does.
Yeah.
It sees out there, and as long as you're not running a bunch of bell packs, most of them will play well with each other.
So what is troubleshooting with that kind of thing if there's not really a lot of options? Does it just work and it works?
Most of the time it just works.
Okay. Are you setting up antennas places for it to work?
Yeah.
Well,
it's a decentralized style antenna system.
Okay.
So you're setting up antennas for improved, coverage.
Like Wi-Fi boosters?
Kind of similar, yeah.
Kind of similar.
Okay. And this is where it also gets into where you can play that weird shell game of, so Riedel says that you can do 50 bell packs in one RF space. And so I describe it as a Venn diagram. Can that circle of that antenna, will it overlap?
Does it overlap the other 50 on the other side?
Because each antenna does each antenna does 10 bell packs.
Okay.
So if it's in the middle of the arena and you're doing 50 bell packs in the arena, great. But if you have an antenna in the control room, there's probably a good chance that antenna that's in the control room won't see the other antennas that are out in the main area. Mm-hmm. So now you can pick up another 10 bell packs.
Yeah.
So, these are some of the nerdy things that set some people to understand the shell game that you can play.
Yeah.
On adding more and more and more.
Interesting.
But back to the Venn diagram thing is like, so, we're based in school talking about Venn diagrams with the overlap of being the cool little funny thing. And, what are the weird colors that we make based on what are these two if they overlap? That's kind of the same way this works. So if you had 5 antennas in a row and you get to the one at the furthest end, there's a good chance number 1 will probably fall offline. Yeah. So if you can't see that one, then we can add another antenna and we can just keep going.
But the antennas talk to each other?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
So in Bolero terms, there's a deck master, which is it scans and says, okay, you're on channel 1, you're on channel 5. Great.
We're good.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And, that is something that
Why don't wireless microphones work like this? Is it because it's not as easy to do? Or is it a...
Well, I mean, we're going after... Well, no, we're going after battery.
Oh, so it's just higher battery for something like that?
Yeah, because, Bolero, it's rechargeable only.
Uh-huh.
Pliant, rechargeable only. Yeah. FreeSpeak, you can run... in the first version, you could run some analog, but I think it lasted 3 hours, 4 hours? I don't remember.
So higher megahertz requires more battery?
Well...
Or is that just... It's the technology
you're
pushing it?
Think of it as a computer. It's pushing data back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
So it's moving more data.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you got to have more components for that.
Yeah.
And then, like if we're talking about, okay, we call a UHFR. It was a one-way send. There was no data path whatsoever. Mm-hmm. But it had a data path that it was only one direction, so you could get the battery telemetry. But you couldn't talk back to it, And then when Accent Analyte came out, you had a separate data channel that came back so you could communicate to the bell pack wirelessly. Now you have technologies like the Accent ADX and the sound devices and the other digital microphones these days have two-way data paths.
What do you think about Sennheiser just came out with something?
Yeah, it's Spectera.
Yeah, is that a two-way thing you're talking you're talking about?
So
It seemed like you could
segueing into RF here. The future of technology is what is going to be called WiMAS. It's a technology that basically I don't remember off the top of the head what the acronym means, but right now we are limited to a 200 kilohertz on some of this stuff, like the bandwidth that an RF spectrum can use, or a device can use. WiMAS will be more of a similar to like DTV. So
What is DTV?
Digital television. So like when you're
Okay.
pulling up scans and stuff like that, you see these 6 megahertz chunks where like just full tilt boogie of something.
Yeah.
So that's the entire TV station, bandwidth wise pushing, we can get into the nerdiness of it, but it's for general public, it would like, whoa, way over their head. But it's the whole weird QAM data packet and all this stuff. But WiMAS will get very similar to that. And Spectera, of course, is the first thing to the market that is a WiMAS device. There are hundreds of questions that I have that I will probably in the next 2-3 months will start answering themselves, especially if I can get a hands on it and like play with it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the documentation reads very weird. And I say weird into there's some things like they say 32 by 32, but if you go look in the documentation, it looks like there's some mentions of 128. So does that mean that you can cascade units? But back to the thing. WiMAS will be a similar technology where it will take care of itself. Of course, you would choose a TV station, but right now, and this is why I've cautioned some people jumping all in on Sennheiser's product, that is we're going to start seeing some people that are like, first of all, it's extremely expensive in the realm of the level of the market you're getting into. I want to say they call it the DAD or the digital audio device or what. I don't remember exactly what but I think it's like $9 or $10 grand. And then I think the bell packs are a couple thousand a piece.
Ooh.
Which puts you in a Axient or D6000, D9000 level.
Yeah.
Price per channel. But it's another one of those, oh, hey, we need 2 channels. Well, that's $14,000. Or no, that'd be, $14,000. And then from there on out, so now you're saying that the price point is $7,000 a channel. And then when you get up into like 16 of them, now the price per channel has greatly depreciated, and they do both RX and TX in one bell pack.
Yeah.
But back to the WiMAS aspect is, say, if we're using 32 receives and 32 transmits. Sennheiser says it's 32 monos or 16 stereo. So you can do 16 stereo mixes and 32 microphones all in one 6 megahertz chunk.
We're going to have like a vocalist hooking up their headphones to their microphone.
I mean, I would absolutely laugh, and
That'd be really funny.
Be really funny. But because they don't have a handheld out to the market yet,
I could see like an acoustic pack you plug in your headphones into. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be funny. It's like, oh, hey, here's a cool little Y cable.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would have been very interesting. It's like, hey, here we go. Here's a Y cable it's the same connector. One side's your ears, the other side's your microphone. Congratulations. It's a small pack, though.
Hey, but you save money on packs, kind of?
Yeah. I mean, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, but what I caution people right now is, A, it is the first player to the market. Shure has something up their sleeve.
I'm sure they do.
I'm sure they do. Me and some other friends were really joking about that. Shure came out with a WiMAS documentation literally the day before Sennheiser dropped this, and talking about where they were trying to help in the whole WiMAS deployment. And they basically exactly what I immediately saw the gate was the difference between 1 channel to 32 channels eats up the same spectrum. Now, let's call it 60% of these users are not going to be doing 3, 4, 5 channels. They're probably going to be doing 12, 16 with some in-ears.
So at that price point, yeah.
Yeah, and so at that point, 6 megahertz, no big deal. But like, let's call a church that does worship center, 3 larger facilities in their same point, and
Close
you know,
proximity.
right. And
Yeah.
so now we're calling a DFW, you're toast.
Yeah.
You don't have that many TV stations. In Houston, you're even less. You have 3.
No, you'd have to somehow connect them and work on the same 6 megahertz block.
Yeah, and this is what all I'm talking
But how
about.
many churches can do that in a street full of churches? Too, right?
Well, and you know, and then do you play the game of blocking, RF blocking on
You're blocking the Baptist church next door so they
yeah.
can't. They can't
or the Catholics next door? You didn't bring me wine.
Revelations is in the RF spectrum.
Or treat it like the whole like randomization. So it's like this Sunday we went to channel 15 and we're flawless, and then next weekend we got hosed. Oh, it's because so and so auto chose 15.
Somebody's playing Ender's Game.
Totally.
That's funny.
Let's see. So RF. You know, we talked a little bit about networking, which of course you know. We could touch back a little bit more on networking.
It's almost like though we need a different technology entirely. It's got to be something else, right?
so we can have another alliance.
What do you mean?
Because you have like AV Alliance, and you have AV New Alliance, and you have the AVB Alliance, and the
Does it have to do with like RF stuff? I don't even know what you're talking about.
No, if we're talking about IT again, so like, you know, going back to that boomerang is like, because you had Dante, and then you had AVB jump on board, and AVB never really took off,
Yeah.
but it's starting to gain steam again.
Yeah.
But more importantly, because you know you got your manufacturers like L Acoustics really stepped behind AVB, but they have a weird version of it. It's AVB Milan. But you know, these protocols are developed by open source, and then they create these alliances so that everybody jumps on ship and is like, how would you like to integrate it? How would you like for it to talk? And so you get these alliances or actually groups of manufacturers that are like, I would love to use it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, then you get Dante, which there's, you know, you got to buy the cards from Dante.
Yeah.
You know, like a...
I guess it would probably be, because it would all probably start with the government finding a new technology to be able to talk over radios or whatever, you know.
Well, I mean, dipping back into WiMAX, yeah, absolutely. It was your main 2 manufacturers, Shure and Sennheiser, really pushed the FCC really hard because it was a new transmission style that you had to have approved. And of course, you know, in IT worlds, it's all got to fit into the weird 802 dot whatever or the DSCP tags or all these weird things that are already. So like, it's a combination of manufacturers creating something that either has to be entirely new or rides on a backbone efficiently.
I'm just trying to think, like, do you think it would ever get to the point where people are having to rent space for an event?
Oh, I mean, you already do that across the pond.
Really?
RF spectrum over there is a lot of it's licensed. And when I mean licensed, like, hey, we want 24 microphones, and here, pay this, you know,
Subscription?
Yeah.
They've already subscriptionized over
Oh,
there?
yeah.
Is it really that dense over there?
I mean, I'm with every government thing, you know, there's probably some money troll somewhere going.
Because it could be that way now, but it's not, I guess, because of, I don't know why. But
Well,
I'm
I mean,
sure
you see
people
it
have fought
in,
against it.
I mean, you see it in, like, for me, that, you know, here we have the 600 megahertz sell-off. And, you know, it was a huge money thing. Like, it was a auction.
Yeah.
Oh, who wants the highest bidder? And then, you know, this is going to bring wireless to everywhere in the world. And it didn't.
The 600 megahertz thing?
Yeah,
Oh. What were they doing with it? I thought it was just for cell phones and TV or something.
it is.
Oh. What was it supposed to be?
Well, I mean, it was supposed to bring, it was because it's a lower band. So the selling point was because it was lower spectrum in the 600s, longer wavelength, so it goes further for less transmit power.
Oh, so it's to get TV to people. At
No,
lower
it was
bandwidth.
straight up for T-Mobile to get, because, another nerd in this thing here is most of the issues that we have with our cell phone today is because of, we don't want to allow people to put up cell phone towers because that's a governmental regulation thing. So, hey, we have a need for a new tower over here. So then you got to turn in the license request and then the town hall meeting. And then, all these people are like, whoa, I don't want a tower near me.
Why?
Because, everybody's afraid that
5G?
5G is going to get into my brain and give me, scramble it and...
McDonald's is already doing that too.
Yeah. Or Waffle House.
Yeah.
I want it smothered and covered.
Gosh.
Or I recently discovered this new breakfast place over in Capel that their pancakes are like literally 16 inches. They are massive. You walk in this place and it's just like...
Golly.
Uh-huh.
You get one.
Yeah.
How many did you eat?
Oh, I only got one.
Oh, okay.
And then you should see the biscuits. They double as
They like this tall?
a loaf of bread.
Nah.
Yeah, I'm dead serious. Like, if you want to define why
What's it
America
called?
is Jackie's Eggs,
Jackie's Eggs? Okay.
Jackie's Eggs and something.
Okay. I'll look it up. Are they good, though?
Yeah, it's not bad.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the pancake. I mean,
Is the pancake like $10?
Well, here's the funny thing: the way that no, it's not. So I got a sausage omelet, hash browns, and a pancake. Walked out with tip $16.
That's not bad.
No, it's not.
No. Big pancake.
Yeah.
Did you take it home?
No.
Kind
But
of.
the way that they described it to me was, or the friends that were going with, and he's like, it's the largest pancake I've ever had that still tastes like a pancake.
Okay.
I'm like, is that like the same description of,
Where else have you had a big pancake?
this is a fantastic piece of fish. It doesn't taste like fish.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, I've been to the state fair. There's some outlandish things that taste strange.
I know,
So,
totally. But I'm just saying, like, I just love people's description of food these days. This is like, especially, there was a comedian, I think, that said that it's like, why do we define fish as not tasting like fish? Oh, how's your salmon? It's delicious. It's not real fishy, though.
because it's not really supposed to be that way.
I guess not.
Yeah. I learned, sidebar. I learned the reason why it tastes that way is because they've been dead a long time.
Oh, totally.
And they were either that or they were killed the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because apparently there's like in fish markets, there's some people that have learned that if they kill it a certain way, it shoots a bunch of toxins into the meat. And that's that fishy taste.
Yeah, like the body shock
Whatever it
bath.
is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could totally get behind that.
I just made that up. I'm just kidding. No, it was real.
I mean, you could totally make that up, but dude, it makes so much sense. I mean, it's natural endorphins.
Yeah, I mean, fish always tastes better near the
Oh,
coast.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
always.
Hey, would you like one that was killed in the last 12 hours, or would you like one that was killed 2 weeks ago and
Flash frozen?
Yeah, flash frozen and has hit 3 different freezers on its way to you.
It's been sitting in Kroger for 6 months.
Yeah. But it's fresh.
I had a lobster roll recently for the first time. Have you ever had one?
The butter one?
Yeah. It's good.
My favorite.
I was at a grocery store that was like stuck in the 90s in Connecticut.
You went,
And,
see?
yeah.
But see, you were up in the lobster roll
Exactly.
section of the world.
I wasn't going to have one here in Texas.
No.
It wouldn't be real.
Yeah, if you ever get to Boston, dude, you got to have some chowder and you got to have a lobster roll.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, a lobster roll and some chowder.
Chowder.
Got to go down to the harbor, get you some chowder. That is a place of the world that is so infectious not to draw your words out like they do when you're doing a corporate show.
I could have had a bad experience, but they're kind of mean up there in Boston.
Yeah.
I had 2 people flip me off in the first hour.
They can be very similar to New Yorkers.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't think it would be that way.
Yeah.
But
They're both nice, but they're very aggressive in their mentality of things.
it's like quick jumps.
Yeah. Come on, man, get out of my way. I got to go to Dunkies and get a crowd.
Okay,
Hey.
jeez.
Sorry.
Jeez. That's funny.
All right, so we didn't touch on intercom much. My other third little thing that I love to do and feel like I do a decent job at it.
Yeah.
As I make a joke that like, so what exactly is intercom? Well, it's the lifeline of a show.
Yeah.
It's how we all talk to each other without looking at each other in the face.
Yeah.
And it's become more and more complex in the last 5 to 7 years than I think in any other, other technologies. You had your ClearComms, your RTS, and hey, you got 2 channels.
Yeah.
And then we made the jump to 4, and now we've got Matrix. And
now you can talk to people individually.
Oh, yeah. And so,
now you can do it on your phone.
When we were talking about, doing pre-investigative things for, learning about each other, I'm sure you saw my recent thing about, you want to see what an adult tantrum's like, just come do intercom.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
Oh, yeah. It's funny because, of course, everything's about budgets these days. And of course, at some point you run into, spectrally, you can't run 100, 200, 300 bell packs.
No,
and
not here.
And I just love because, it's like I make the joke like, oh, you need to bring some more spares. And I'm like, okay, cool. So like, are we going to give the restroom attendant on level 3 a bell pack or something?
Live to the janitor.
Yeah. Live, coming in hot, the CEO. He needs to wash his hands twice.
He's been in here 6 times.
Yeah. Tally marks. Gotta have tally marks. No, the needs of just, like we were talking about earlier is like, the whole ratio of like 6 hardwired to 1 wireless. Now we've gotten into, for every wired, it's 6 wireless.
Well, I think what I've noticed in the corporate world is I feel like people stop saying no to people.
I would
that
not
and
disagree.
Coupled with technology has gotten to a point to allow a ton of things.
Well, and technology has improved where it's not a bad experience.
Yeah. And it's like, no, we can only do this.
Yeah.
No, we can't. But now it's like, I can, but like it's going to be $30,000, or whatever.
Well, I mean, I was just on a conversation with a guy that is doing a one-off thing for a like EDM style show, and they came out of the gate with like they want 30 wireless bell packs
For an EDM wireless show?
Well,
comms.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm like...
It's a one-off show somewhere up in...
DJ's doing Atmos in his ears.
Absolutely. He's going to set them all on the table, and he's going to make them do different things. They're all going to vibrate to
They're going to fly on drones.
Yeah, totally. No, so that's an example, and just kind of like... I joke that, comms is not only understanding how a show flows and how people are going to move, but it's also a weird game of almost like the modern age monitor guy. We have to understand...
For production, specifically, yeah.
We have to understand people's needs. We then have to treat everybody like an artist. Mm-hmm. And we have to, facilitate everybody's needs. We always have to have a smile on their face. Then when we are just repetitively getting raked over the coals over something ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, like, if you have great pre-production, great information coming in before, and you kind of learn the things that are going to bite you. And if you have good trust with your clients, your, the companies you work for, or your bosses, your friends, your comrades, all that stuff, that can also help you push to get the things that you need to make your job successful. That reduces, of course, down on stress. But, there's times where it's just like, hey, your budget allows for 40. You really need to get into 40 wireless bell packs. And then I spend the next 4 days, trying not to yell at somebody because I told you so. You need more than 40. And you told me that you didn't want to put those PAs on wireless. And now you're in my world telling me that the show won't happen if I don't put them on the PAs on wireless
It
intercom.
turns into this you're fired unless
Yeah,
happens.
and I won't mention, but it was to the aspect of it was literally a golf cart driver. This show will not happen if we don't get the golf cart
if
driver.
Jerry does not get his comps.
And I'm like, okay.
Do you ever tie into radios?
Yep.
Okay.
Of course, there's ups and downs of that.
Yeah.
I can't control the level, so it's like the whole radio thing's like somebody comes smoking
hot. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you want to crawl out of your skin. Yeah. That's my new favorite description on people using Bluetooth headsets too. 'Cause, like Bolero and FreeSpeak will allow Bluetooth headsets to connect to these wireless bell packs now, and so I try to lock those features out so I know if somebody's going to use that, because for some reason those manufacturers have Bluetooth gained up higher than anything else. So it's like that first time if somebody does it without me knowing and they come in and it's like everybody crawls out of their skin. Oh my gosh, that dude's yelling. Like, no, he was actually whispering. He just came in 12 dB hot.
Yeah.
So here, let me click, save. Okay, now we should be good.
That's funny.
But, I just enjoy doing intercom because it's such a game of knowledge, game of knowing how people work and how people walk around, and just being able to provide a friendly face to laugh, have fun with, and give people what they need to make their job easy.
Yeah.
Of course there's always hard ones, but those outshine the ones that you on show site for 15 days and you're hanging out with people that you now call your friend. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I want to dive into like simple systems, because you deal with usually a little more complicated systems, whether it's a lot, it's over fiber, a bunch of different antennas,
all of that
across the campuses, who knows. In my world, I'm dealing a lot with like G4 systems. Right. I personally have a SLX-D setup, which I love, because the search on there is great, and I have it hooked up to my router to where I can wireless workbench.
Oh, yeah.
If it's really a trouble situation. But what would you recommend, or what would you recommend for people, especially like, say, like, I've done some gigs, 24th floor, downtown Dallas, probably next to something, throwing a bunch of RF, really difficult to find frequencies. Going through the easy setup, it gives you frequencies and they suck. And so I'm having to like manually tune, just based on looking at noise.
Yep.
Is there anything that you to speak on, trying to find good frequencies in trouble areas like that?
So let's just talk about the purchasing process that most people need to walk through, that I would suggest is, so of course we're all discussing money. That's of course it's everybody's budget based on what you want. And I mentioned the budget as a number one item too, because as you get higher per dollar, higher in the ranges of channel counts or price per RF channel, that your available spectrum also increases. So if we're calling, like, we bought a product that was $1,000 per channel, just rounding. Let's say that you have the ability to do 40 megahertz. So you have your choice of 40 megahertz in anywhere. And then let's call it you bought $1,500. Now that 40 went to 60.
Yeah.
And so on and so on. And then, when you get into the bigger price per channels, like your Axients, your D6000s, D9000s, your all those higher end ones, you get full bandwidth.
Yeah.
Choose anything you want between 470 and 608 or 616. That's a factor, but step one, establish what you want, or like, what do you want willing to spend? And then, of course, the number one thing is people just use Frequency Finder or something on a website that could be based off of data that has nothing to do with exactly where they are.
Yeah.
I
You're talking about just like when picking between like different bands.
I call it a band plan.
Yeah.
Make a good band plan. I was having a discussion with somebody in Houston about this and was pushing them towards a band that is very, very niche and not widely known. But I said, you got to look at what you're going to do in the next 5 years. But going back to this is, establish a budget for how much you want, how many channels you want, how much you're willing to spend, what kind of bandwidth you have available, which is, again, there's products on the market now like the Tiny SA Ultra. That's $150.
What is that?
It's a little Chinese spectrum analyzer.
Oh, okay. SA Ultra.
Yeah. It's Tiny SA.
Is there any phone stuff?
Not on iOS because they locked that down. But Android, you may be able to buy.
Like you can't scan RF on a phone? iPhone?
Not on an iPhone.
Is that why? Mm-hmm. I was like, how is there not a thing?
Yeah.
What was that called again?
Tiny SA.
Tiny
so
SA.
TINY SA Ultra.
I want to keep something like this in my bag, and I don't want to spend a lot of money.
Yeah, it's touchscreen. It's got a little jog wheel.
Okay. Do I have to buy it from Taiwan?
No. When we get off of here, I'll show you. There's an official website you do want to buy it from because, of course...
TinySA.org?
Yep.
Okay.
And then there's a button in there for you to...
where to buy?
It's like R&L Electronics, I think, is US is the one.
Okay. I'm going to save this.
Because there are some weird knockoffs.
That's so dumb you can't do it on a phone.
Man, bro. We're talking about... We're just now entering the age where we can do spectrum... calculations or frequency calculations, not straight up on a laptop.
Maybe Trump will do it.
Yeah, him and the 400 other people below in that pyramid that would much
care.
rather, what can I do to improve my pocketbook? Yeah, so, using some of the cheaper things or as simple as using the current gear that you have to do a spectrum scan if you can.
Yeah.
But bottom line, it comes down to your budget.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you see a lot in these forums, and I stay out of it because, like, I'm telling you, I could probably spend all 24 hours of my day trying to fix stupid.
Yeah.
When you can only manage it.
Yeah.
And kudos to the people that are capable to derive a response on social media in a manner where it seems intelligent and it doesn't seem like they're slamming. Because there's times where I just want to, it's like I've gotten involved in a couple of them, like, hey, I think we're having RF issues. It did not cut out in the house, but it cut out in the stream. And the suggestions are...
It's RF.
It's RF. Like, are you guys... Like I teach my kids.
Have you thought?
Are you
about
guys
this?
looking at the little details here? You're getting a word problem, and you completely focused in on the first line. It cut out, and that's it.
It's part of the LED wall.
Yeah. But there's no LED wall. Well, there's probably one down the street.
Yeah.
And I was talking about this at Philo, just talking about the little things like, just the little. Little weird things in everybody's system, using video cable on accident instead of RF cable, right. And, mounting your antennas too high or too low or
too far away.
Yeah. Because some of the weird, rhymey things that I use are, think as your antenna is just like you. So if you stick your antenna up on top of a building and you wonder why can't I have any opening frequencies? I don't know. If you go out in the open space, can you see everything? Oh, you can? So can that bad boy.
Yeah.
When that was a explanation, there was a theater way out east Texas, southwest Texas, and they had mounted the antennas way up there, and they're like, we're getting these weird DTV stations. Like, they show they're supposed to be open, and I go, you remember you're outside. That antenna can also see 360 degrees, so you need to do a better job at shielding that.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
I had an amusement park, same ordeal. Mounted two pedals at the very top of this tower. We don't know why we can't use the microphones at certain times of day. Well, I don't know either, but I can tell you that antenna can see everything from Canada and all around it.
Yeah.
Oh, so if you drop it down to like 8 foot, which is the same height of your stage, you're going to be way better.
Yeah.
So stuff like that.
But I don't want to see it.
Oh.
Always.
Yeah, yeah. Can we paint that, story of installations? We have a black ceiling. Are you sure it's black? Oh, I promise you it's black. So then you paint it black. And then you find out it's like Mystic Mountain
Yeah.
black. You're like, that's not black. That's like a shade of black.
Uh-huh.
So I can't get spray paint to match anything.
No.
I had that on an install that they wanted all the cables painted the same color as the ceiling. Like, it's white. Oh, no, it's not.
It's
was
eggshell or something.
No, it was something even more, bougie, like, Grand Mirage, light white or something,
You
something.
have to bring a paint sprayer with you to do it.
Well, luckily I had the Sherwin-Williams code, and we went down and got, at the time I didn't know, you could make your own spray paint.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It is.
At Sherwin-Williams?
Yeah. You get these little tiny, you put the paint in there and you have to thin it out a little bit, but it's like this weird screw-on.
Butane or something?
Yeah, it's like a pressurized can.
That's cool.
Anyways, getting on a weird tangent.
Hey, good things to know, especially in the production world.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But going back to the RF stuff is, and then we just get into technologies, which is also a thing that plays a lot that people don't, talking about diversity types. So let's talk about the common things that I see that were wrong. Of course, people are always talking about, I don't want to, when do I need an antenna? What style of cable should I use? Where should I place the antennas? Why is that so expensive? Or can I use this? Or, well, Sennheiser's splitter work with Shure microphones. And, those are all those common questions, which, everybody has an answer for. Paddles, of course, I'd love to see paddles on things that, you want to go distance, or you want to improve distance on something, or because we all like to love and make fun of people that have stacked 6, 8, 12 channels, all with whip antennas and whee, it's an antenna farm.
Yeah. See how it goes.
Yeah.
Especially in ears.
And without going down the technical route, all that stuff is, quarter wave, half wave. And when you start blocking a portion of that, then it doesn't get the full wave.
In the back of the rack and paint one the other way.
Yeah, I don't know why we don't have reception when this is a complete metal rack and the door's closed.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know either. And then the whole aged old video cable. It's like, oh, I just found we had some leftover cables, so I did that. Like, okay.
What cables are they?
All right. That's interesting. It should work fine. And of course I own the stuff to sweep those cables, and then I show them and they go, oh, we'll replace those immediately. Off. Yeah. It looks like a weird little, giant lake with lots of ripples on it.
Uh-huh.
Whee!
Yeah.
And then I try to, it's like all of this is trying not to nerd out and try to keep it as simple to them, but all those ripples are power reflecting back. Oh. And then they're like, okay, now I understand.
Yeah.
But a conversation I have a lot with churches these days is, they don't want Axient because it's too much, or
money.
The price is too much per channel.
Yeah.
So they're like, we had UHFR, and we upgraded to ULXD. Like, cool.
Was that the precursor to ULXD? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So taking a quick run back about 15 years ago. So you had SLX.
Yeah.
And you had ULXS, ULXP, UHFR.
Yeah, that was.
And then you had
that world.
and then later on in that was Axient Analog.
Okay.
Which was the first one on the market that you could go back and actually talk to the transmitter and push frequencies without having to touch a person. So then fast forward to this day, SLX of course is replaced by SLXD.
Yeah.
ULXS was replaced by QLX. ULXP was replaced by ULXD, and then this is where great marketing. UHFR was replaced by Axient, and Axient Analog was replaced by Axient ADX,
Okay.
which is, same receiver, different transmitters in the show link aspect.
Yeah.
But the technology and the antenna choice and all that stuff pre-Axient is still the exact same, except now it's digital, so it's a little bit different and based on algorithms and some other stuff instead of electrical. So I get these phone calls all the time. Hey, man, I think we're getting hits. We're getting frequency dropouts. Hold on, I gotta sneeze.
God bless you.
Yeah. So, oh man, yet another one.
Oh, don't do it.
Don't do it.
You're not going to do it.
I'm not gonna do
You're
it.
not going to sneeze now.
Sweet.
You thought about it.
All right. So, getting a little bit nerdy here so people can focus in on little words that are in these manufacturers: electronic diversity and true diversity. Yeah. So, electronic diversity in Shure's world is they basically divide that there is an A and a B that come into the actual receiver itself, and then it runs an mathematic, calculation, and it chooses which one it likes, and then it sends it to the receiver block. Mm-hmm. So think of it as you got your right hand and you're trying to touch the left wall or the right wall, and at some point when the two of them look the exact same, and it's freaking out, it doesn't know one A or B, it goes A B A B A B A B A B A.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you're not touching anything.
That's what happened to me on ULXD.
Yeah.
Yeah, at Milestone.
Yep. Yeah. And so, now people like me come in and like, okay, we're still going to use two antennas, but now I have to treat it like two cameras, and we have to make these two cameras look similar
but
different.
Yeah. Because I think it was on a DFIN.
Yeah.
So
it was super high.
I don't think we changed it. We probably should have done two paddles or something.
We did. I think I can't remember if we pulled that paddle down or.
I know we pulled it from the ceiling and put it side stage next to monitors.
Yeah.
But I don't think we actually.
You know what? I think we only used
after
the
that
fin side or something, or I can't remember if I also put those CP beams or something of that nature. But
because we had one CP beam for monitors for in-ears,
yeah,
and then a DFIN. But anyway,
but
so the best thing to do in that situation is to try to have two different enough areas so that it's not getting confused.
Yeah, and people do there's nothing wrong with the diversity fin. It's a good product. I would say don't try to throw any more than about 50 feet with it.
Yeah.
And then, it gets into the longer conversation about understanding how the waves come out of a transmitter based on the different things. So that's why you see people are talking about, hey, I've got one paddle up and I got one paddle sideways, or I got two paddles on 45-degree angles, and then you talk about helicals, and helicals are the whole thing about the polarity and all that stuff stays intact no matter the orientation of a microphone. So that's why there's way more natural gain in that pickup stage.
Yeah. But it's way more narrow, right?
Oh yeah. 60 degrees versus most of these paddles, and keep in mind when we say 60 degrees, because this is another conversation like, oh well, that's out of 60 degrees, it's just not going to work.
6 degrees from the antenna.
Yeah, it's like 6 degrees on center, so it's a total of 60 degrees from left to right, but it's kind of like a PA. Like, it says it's 90 degrees, but that doesn't mean that it's just going to straight up fall on its face at 60 degrees.
Right.
You get out of the Uber gain or the center of a light.
Yeah.
There's still some residual, but
right.
And we got all those antennas, and then when you step up into like an Axient, it actually has true diversity, so it can see any combination of A or B at any given time.
Yeah.
And then you get up into like the quadversity, which was, you can run 4 different antennas and get larger coverage. And then there's multi-zone, and so all these things. We could probably talk for hours and hours upon all this stuff, but it's just those technologies that other people need to factor in these purchases. Mm-hmm. And then we get into sonic quality.
Yeah.
The difference between an SLX and like an Axient, for instance, it's definitely going to be a sonic quality difference because
yeah.
Codecs improve, algorithms improve,
Yeah.
transmission, and all that stuff improves.
Sorry.
And so, go ahead.
Oh, you're good. My mic's going.
So, you get into all this stuff. And so like, I was actually having a conversation with a guy, and I was like, listen, I'm not bagging on ULXD, but I want you to go take a hardwired microphone, and I want you to compare the hardwired microphone to an Accent
Yeah.
and a ULXD and then to a hardwire. And he's like, and he comes back to me and goes, oh man, that ULXD sounds terrible against a hardwired microphone. I was like,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's why I've always thought, because I haven't really got to work with Axion a lot, I'm always just like, man, wireless just isn't as good. I mean, even if you put an Axion next to a hardwired, it's probably still not as good.
Yeah.
I bet the difference isn't nearly as much.
yeah, not as much.
If at all.
I mean, there's still
to the
artists.
ear.
There's still some artists out there that won't accept Axion because
Or they
say
accept.
it does. Well, they just say that it does something to the mic cap.
But like, what do they take instead?
UHFR.
Which is the old ULXD.
Old Axion, yeah.
So it's analog,
Yeah,
and that sounds better.
they. And it's.
But is that true? Because I thought, I was told, the difference between analog and digital realm is now you don't have the whole companding thing, where your microphone signal is essentially getting compressed down to be able to get over analog UHF and then re-expanded. You have a higher dynamic range in digital because of that.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Okay.
I mean, it's a different fancy term.
Because to me, like, the difference between G4 and SLXD sounds better to me.
Yeah,
But I don't know if that's the capsules I'm using either. But
I've not done that direct comparison. But yeah, digital is going to be more true because you're not doing you're not doing A to D, or sorry, any vice versa, any of that. Mm-hmm. But yes, companion circuit, of course, yes, fancy for, it's a compressor, and then it expands it back. It's like zipping files and unzipping files.
right.
So of course, as the more money you spent, the better the companion got. I remember demoing one that I was just like, holy crap, that mic sounds compressed, and I don't even have a compressor in.
Yeah.
But that was 15, 17
Well, that was
years
if your
ago.
sensitivity was set a
Oh,
little off. I still do that with the G4 stuff. I have to.
Oh, yeah.
Some vocals I have to go. Nope, we're gonna go down
Yeah,
40B or 60B, whatever it is.
and you look at the you look in the receiver and you're like, this doesn't look like it's overloading, but yet it sounds like it's getting crushed.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then there's my new favorite term. We're getting hits. We're taking hits. Like,
Who is usually contacting you? A production person or a
dude,
pastor?
I cannot tell you.
Because that sounds like a pastor talking to you.
No. This happens a lot more in corporate.
Okay, yeah.
So, when a manufacturer releases a digital product and it really goes, and then manufacturing had to swap because of something burned down, and so they had to blitz and move production. And so you got a major manufacturer that has a bad run of bell packs that would emit what sounds like super high gain stage or noise floor. So you have that, and so that touts people's understanding of I'll do a couple of these large shows that are 400 or 500 frequencies. And this guy got a room of some cross-rental gear, and he's like, hey man, all my frequencies are bad. Like, what do you mean? He's like, they're all making noise. I'm like, ooh, I gotta come up there, because digital microphones don't make noises when they have RF problems. They just mute.
Yeah.
They just go, nope.
Yeah. It
Data pass out.
That sounds like an RF power thing, or.
And so, it was an overspray issue that was in a manufacturing process that basically some stuff was touching that it shouldn't, so it was making a weird shh noise.
Was that because I had some KSM9s making noise?
That was a grounding problem.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know if that was the same thing.
Yeah, not similar, but not the same.
Okay.
Yeah, they had a weird on those KSM9s that you had where like a grounding pin was actually not technically grounded where it was supposed to be grounded.
Yeah.
So that created an artificial noise floor thing.
Yeah.
This was basically in bell packs, and you would only really hear it in lavalier microphones or stuff of that nature. And it was also very weird because it was also centered. It would more do it the closer you were to 550. It's within, 60 megahertz of 550.
Huh.
So, going from, 520 to 580, if you were anywhere in there, that would be more susceptible, so you could get it out of there. So, first we got a guy, it's making noise, I want new frequencies. So I come in there and like, oh, this sounds like the noise floor problem. And so like I change frequencies, and he'd go, see, I told you it was a frequency problem. I go, no, it's the noise issue that I was trying to tell you about. I said, I just take a look at my phone, I'm typing an email to the manufacturer with all the serial numbers. I'll let you know when they write me back, because I promise this is in this run. So they wrote me back and said, yeah, those are potentially going to create problems. But going back to my thing about, I get all these like, we're taking hits. These, we need a new frequency. Like, does the receiver say interference? Well, no. Then you're not taking hits. Well, then why is it making noise? I go, I don't know. Did he hit the microphone? Is he wearing a DPA and maybe the microdot was loose?
Yeah.
It's like it's only transmitting what you're putting in there. So if you got noise before, it's going to transmit noise.
Yeah.
So, having to educate people like that.
Yeah. And yeah, it can present itself the same, but it's a different issue. For sure.
So, that's why I like to say part of my job is being smart and the other is hostage negotiating.
Consulting.
Yes. Well, trying to be firm.
So, like, back to the simple system thing. Say you've got a DFIN, you've got 4 channels of G4, you're 24th floor of a Dallas tower, you don't have a scanner,
So
you're just
It
doing...
sounds like somebody burned you.
I'm just saying, I've been in this situation, I know, and I've been able to get through it, but I know other engineers that just had to go wired.
Yeah.
Because, so what's their best route to do in that kind of situation? Is it literally just go to advanced tune, find a frequency that's clear, and
so
hope
like
they
if
don't...
we're referring to a G4, let's use a G4 for instance. Use their software and scan it. Okay, and so like if we can see if
the
you can
Sennheiser software?
Yeah.
What if you don't have access to that?
You don't have access to it, or somebody doesn't?
They're not like, what if they're not networked together?
Okay.
And like all that?
Well, I wouldn't even say, let's just say we can jam a computer into one of them.
Okay.
Let's go down what would be a preferred method.
Okay.
So we would interface into one of the units, which hooked up to whatever antenna system, or if it's on its own, great. Let's take a scan so we can visually see what it thinks it sees. And then go from there, because most of the time you're going to be able to look at this and go, oh, that right there does not look like that.
Okay.
And I refer to that as, you can obviously tell there's a TV station there.
Yeah.
And then you can obviously tell there's nothing there.
Right.
And then tell yourself, hey, I can put that microphone there.
Yeah.
And then manually do it.
Okay.
I speak in the matter of Sennheiser, and I've done this more and more just to, the whole conversation about their in-ears. They make great products, especially, sub PSM 900 on their other manufacturer is, but I have a variety of scanners, ranging from the $150 one all the way up to a $15,000 scanner.
Yeah.
And it's like, I promise you nothing's there. All of those say there's nothing there.
Yeah.
But that Sennheiser product goes, oh yeah, there's something there. And I don't like it.
And then sometimes like there's nothing there, and it's like, no, there's something there. Sometimes when you do the scan.
Definitely. But don't quote me here, so I don't want to go to the thing. But so the way I've always related it is Sennheiser to me is based off of minus 120 dB.
Noise floor?
Yep.
Okay.
And then Shure, most of the products, if we're talking non-digital, is minus 100. So like in-ears, you want to aim for something at minus 100. And I think Sennheiser G4 being more of a microvolt thing, I've always just told myself, it's probably minus 120. So it's probably even further down there. So it's got to be even cleaner.
Yeah.
So most of the time when I suggest people when they're using these ears is if you're using an external coordination software, I like to do like a commissioning wargaming as I go. Mm-hmm. So, hey, I'm going to take my first ear and my first selection, and I'm going to, before I even turn anything on, I'm going to go and I'm going to take that frequency and put it in the bell pack. I'm going to walk around the stage, make sure that I don't see any meters reflecting. Great.
Yeah.
Let's put that in the transmitter, turn it on, walk it. Do I hear any noise? Great. Moving on. And just repeat. But back to you're talking about being in Dallas, which, of course, I heard a lot because of Fair Park and American Airlines Center and all those kind of like a northeastern of what is Antenna Central, Cedar Hill down there. I hear a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
Because the noise floor is significantly higher down there.
Yeah.
Because of building reflection, because of proximity of how those antennas are aimed, designed, and pointed from TV things. And most of the time is you just have to, like you said, if we just do an advanced scan and try to manually find something, that's cool for one channel.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be okay for two.
Yeah.
Because 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have a whole bunch of like junk flying around on 2 channels. And that's what that coordination is. Coordinations are basically avoiding the artifacts of multiple transmitters interacting with each other, or IMD or intermod. And that's why they, the most popular software was IAS intermod or IAS, so intermod analysis software.
How can you figure out if you're having an intermod issue without software?
So most of the time,
Is it just it's gonna be noisy?
well, you're going to hear a noise in ears. You're going to hear little tiny wisp,
Okay.
which could be an intermod or it could be something naturally there.
Yeah.
But this is why I also suggest that anytime that you make a coordination, is I do a war game, and so place the transmitters out across the intended use, no less than 2 or 3 feet apart.
Yeah.
Turn one off. Watch the receiver. It should go completely away.
Right.
If it does, turn it back on. You're basically physically checking the coordination to make sure that all the calculations and where you put in the frequencies, you didn't get on top of some intermod product.
So say if I had 4 mics, I did 1, I checked it, that's good. Then I find another frequency, that one's good. Turn off mic 1, see if it's still good.
No, so my walkthrough here is turn off 1. If it's good, turn it back on.
Okay.
Go to 2, turn it off. Did it go away? Great. Turn it back on. Move on down the line, because you're looking for an intermod product based on an off transmitter, because it's going to show up as a product of other ones that are on.
Right. Okay. Cool.
And as digital has come along, that has calmed way down.
Really?
But because analog was super, super, super prone to intermod. And I also called them IMD bombs, where I would walk into these, corporate breakouts, and the dude would have all 4 microphones literally sitting next to each other on top of his desk, and just blowing intermod to other intermod bombs. And so this is where you got your RF 10s or the baking 10s, where I would tell people like, hey, you're gonna get a toolbox. Why don't you take foil, or if you can get Faraday fabric, put it at the bottom where the antenna is. And so when you stack them all, waiting for people to come pick them up in the morning, and you power them on, so you're not blowing and going and wrecking yourself.
Yeah.
Another analogy that I tell people is the more microphones you get together related to you're having a party at your house, the more people that show up, the higher the noise floor. Well, if you have a super high sensitive antenna in the same room, it's wanting to listen to one person, and you got an entire room screaming at you.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of basically, hey, let's put some headphones on, or like, let's all like, you guys, talk softly, and that kind of like you control the environment with that kind of stuff. So, that's when and we've gotten more, people's organization has gotten way better in how they're laying microphones out, and of course digital.
Yeah.
But
that's cool.
Dallas is downtown Dallas is a rough market.
Yeah, especially I think these mics I'm using are like that 520 to 560.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Which means you only
Something
have
around
one
there.
TV station available. It's probably 26.
Yeah, and it's busy up there.
Yep. One. So, because, being a Dallas-based guy, I know right offhand, you have TV 15, 17,
Yeah.
20, sometimes 22, and 26,
Yeah.
depending on where you are in the Metroplex.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to what else you were saying, is there are many times where I can go stand outside and take a spectrum scan and, want to throw up.
Yeah.
And then I go down to the antenna space of use, and there's nothing.
Really?
Looks like two different things. So, I tell people when I'm doing these offsites that I'm going to go for the worst, and then we'll start pulling back when we see the area of use.
Yeah.
Like Moscone Center in San Fran. If you go up to the street, you see everything. You go down to the main ballroom, like to one of the main halls down there, and there's nothing. Not a single DTV
Why
down
is
there.
that?
It's concrete. You're in a bunker.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Relate to this, it's like even in your house, you have to yell when your wife or significant other's in another room.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same premise with wireless. It's like at some point, like you're not going to be able to receive a TV station when you're 10 feet below ground or, 30, 40 feet below.
Yeah.
So that's, so I tell people to plan for the worst.
Okay.
But on that same premises, maybe you move the receivers.
The receiver's the antenna.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about not using, if you're using an antenna distro, then you would move the antennas. And if you're only using one or two, then let's move the receiver itself.
Yeah. The gig I have to do, I can't move it.
Okay.
The antenna has to go right next. I guess the antenna can move technically, but it's like the console and
Oh yeah, it's all on a rack. Yeah.
two in-ear transmitter,
Yeah.
4 receiver, console I/O, all that stuff.
But the other thing about that is keep in mind that it's always the window of opportunity. You don't have to have the window open all the way every day. And so when you do have those ones that, that's why there's filters similar to like, audio filters doing low pass, high pass stuff. There's times where like, hey, maybe I go hide this somewhere, which gives me enough headway for this microphone to work for the 25 feet that's on stage.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the greatest place. Like we're actually trying to go put it in a bunker somewhere to get it to work.
Yeah.
To give you just enough edge. That's why like our venue has that, I call it the yoga mat, but it's the spotlight antenna. Was originally created for like expo floors because it's very low forward gain, and it was really made for you to stand over it.
Okay.
So they're let's call them 2.5 foot circles.
Yeah.
And you would put them under the stage.
Huh.
Or put them under like an expo.
I didn't even know that existed.
Oh yeah. One of the core antennas that RFNU made has like a little 6 foot little BNC, but not made for long range, really made for you pretty much on an expo floor that may have 2, 3, 4, 500 frequencies in one area.
Yeah.
And that frequency that you're in booth 1, 300 feet away, it's not going to be able to see crap. So you can use that same frequency.
That's cool.
Those kind of weird things.
The more you know.
Yeah. Where's the rainbow?
Well, I appreciate you coming.
Man, thanks for having me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think many audio guys get to talk to somebody that knows their shit on RF sometimes.
Hey, man. I mean, it's
there's not enough YouTube videos about it.
Well,
I feel like, but maybe I'm.
Or there are tons of YouTube videos, and then you pick one little nugget of information. That's what Matt Wheeler always says. He's like, man, I maybe I didn't really need to go to that training class, but like, I got that one nugget.
Yeah.
And that's we refer back like in the PM1D days.
Yeah.
Because he was a PM1D master.
Uh-huh.
But we'd still go to the Yamaha classes.
Yeah.
And, we'd be standing there like, Matt, you really going to go? He's like, oh, yeah. And he'd like stand there and he would go, Nugget.
Hey, that's a good way to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can learn anything from anybody.
Yeah. And never, last words of wisdoms are, never be complacent in the knowledge that you have, and never think that you are more intelligent than the person around you, and that, as other engineers always will specialize in something of everybody else. So, act like a sponge and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
You may get berated for something, but just understand it may be out of love or
they're an asshole. Mm-hmm. That's okay.
But guess what? You learn from an asshole.
You do too. That's for sure.
That's true. Because, I'm don't get me wrong. There's, you come at me wrong something over something. I may bite back.
Yeah.
Did you go talk to that asshole? Yeah, I'm not going to talk to that guy. I don't care what he has to say.
That's awesome.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you so much.
I appreciate it. I don't know how I'm ending these. I just do a little clap. Whatever.